everyone, and welcome to episode 47 of the Plug in Play podcast. I'm your host, Henry, and I'm back from an overseas adventure to Italia. So I have a lot to cover. I've been gone the past 4-ish weeks, or at least podcast-wise, I've been gone the last 4-ish weeks. So we have a lot of news, including the GTA 6 delay, another delay amongst union-busting accusations at Rockstar. We have Halo 1 signaling the downfall of Xbox as a console manufacturer. They are now a publisher. Halo will be coming to PlayStation day one, along with several other news stories, including layoffs at Amazon, Remedy CEO stepping down, Assassin's Creed iffy Ubisoft news, as usual. I mean, that's just kind of Ubisoft. But, but we also have Ghost of Yotei impressions, updated Ghost of Yotei impressions. Played a lot more of that game in the meantime. Haven't finished it yet, but we've come very close, so we're going to be giving the final tidbits on Ghost of Yotei coming up. But first, now the real but first, why don't you be a part of the show? You can do it. You can be a part by emailing the pluginplaypodcast1@gmail.com email address. I will read your question out on the show. We can have fun that way. Or, as we're going to get into in a later segment, you can just leave a comment on anything. One of the shorts I post, anything like that. We have all of them out there. Speaking of which, you can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all at pluginplaypod1. And you can watch our shorts. We're doing a lot of work there. I'm trying really hard, even though everybody's just posting that I comment, that I'm AI. I try very hard. Speaking of trying very hard, if you don't like what I have to say, you can skip it. You got timestamps down in the description. It's a labor of love. I do it for you. If you like what I'm saying, or you want to hear what I'm saying, you can skip to it. If you don't like it, you can just skip past it. And that's really my housekeeping. So, like I said, I've been gone for a while. I was really hoping to get a lot more gaming in than I did. It's been a lot busier than I expected in recent days. A lot more work has come up for me on a personal level that I have not had time for gaming. Tried to squeeze in a little bit on the plane over to Italy. I only played like 2 hours of Pokemon ZA on my Switch 2. Not enough to really give impressions on, so I'm going to hold off on that for sure. Played a lot more of Yotei, we'll get into later in the podcast. There are a lot of comments on my shorts about those, which very crazy people are even commenting or giving them the time of day. So that's really surprising to me, very interesting. We'll get into that, I'm sure. And then in Italy, not much gaming stuff. Lots of pasta, lots of pizza over there. You'd be surprised. They seem to be known for it. But I did think about specifically Assassin's Creed a lot. I would look at things and I would explicitly think like, dang, I climbed that. I was Ezio and I climbed that building. I vividly remember that. Specifically like the Duomo in Milan. I went to Milan, a little trip to Milan as part of the trip, and I was looking at the Duomo, and I was like, I vividly remember climbing that. Like, I'm pretty sure there's, like, a trophy or, like, a specific special item or, like, legendary armor or something. It's been a very long time since I've played the Ezio trilogy, literally when it came out, so like over a decade and a half ago, probably 2 decades ago at this point, feeling a little old. And I was like, I know for a fact that there was like something interesting going on in this structure because it was one of the major structures in the game. I also thought a lot. I went to Venice as part of the trip. Thought a lot about Sly Cooper 3, one of my favorite games ever, if not my favorite game ever. Huge childhood influence there, Sly 3, and the first level in Sly 3 is a level set in Venice. So there's a lot of obvious references to, the little boats. I can't believe sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but the boats in Venice, and the canals and Italian culture and so on and so forth. So like I was in Venice and I was just like, this is a dream. I'm in Sly Cooper 3. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. But anyway, it was a long trip. It was a tiring trip for sure. I'm still adjusting, still getting back, doing jet lag stuff, going to bed at like 9 o'clock in the evening, which is like crazy for me, and waking up against my will at like 7 o'clock in the morning, like that kind of deal. So anyway, but that doesn't have anything to do with freaking video games. You're here for video games, dude. So I've been gone for a while. Lots of news has popped up. I have been trying to, as I've kind of said at the top of the show, try to grow the podcast a little bit, try to be an influencer to a certain extent, as cringe as that is to say and even think. But I do want people to see it, and more specifically, I want video game brands to see it, so they'll give me free video games. Yeah. That was literally like the reasoning. Is I actually know a guy who lives close to me who's like a micro-influencer, and he's been doing influencing for a few years. He's like, I mean, when you think influencer, you think this guy, like he's the stereotypical influencer, video game influencer, and he gets free stuff from all sorts of video game people all the time. And I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. So let's put in the effort we have to. So I've been doing shorts and stuff like that. I don't like showing my face on the internet. That's just a personal thing. I'm kind of a data privacy guy. Which is odd, I know, because I'm posting things on the internet, hours of content on the internet, but free video games are tempting, so we have to do what we have to do. But I've been making shorts, dicing the podcast up, because that's typically how you get the most interaction, and I use an AI filter for my face. It's not my real face. If you've seen any of my shorts, it's not my real face. I put in ChatGPT, give me the ultimate gamer that eats too many Doritos and Mountain Dew, and that was the face that it said was the ultimate gamer face. So that is my avatar that I have decided to run with. All of my comments, I get a lot of engagement, a lot more than I thought. It's honestly surprising. If you've ever been interested in influencer talk, I find influencer talk pretty interesting, so I'll give you a short spiel. But I get thousands and thousands of views on my shorts. No views on the podcast on YouTube. TikTok and Instagram specifically, nobody watches it. It is unpredictable what the frick works and what doesn't. I have no idea. If my livelihood relied upon influencing, I think I would go insane. Because there are some clips that I'm like, oh, this is going to do fine. And then it will have literally 0 views. And I'll see people that are like, oh no, TikTok is the best way to grow, and nobody is watching TikTok. And then I'm doing really well on YouTube, and I'm like, but only on YouTube Shorts, so nobody is really, jumping from my shorts to my channel to watch the podcast. They're just watching shorts. So I'm like, okay, how does any of this work? How am I supposed to make a living off of this? And by the way, you need like hundreds of subscribers before YouTube even starts giving you pennies to make money, which like I'm not necessarily trying to make money. But like, you need hundreds of subscribers, like 500. And so it's like that would take me probably at this rate, literally years to get. So anyway, YouTube influencing in general, I don't know how you do it. If you do it for a living, you're insane. So kudos to you in many, many different respects. But anyway, I've gotten a lot of engagement on in my comments. All of them are just saying I'm AI, which is technically true. My face is. A lot of people insulting me, telling me that I'm AI slop, that there's no reason for me to be using AI, etc., etc. That's a lot of TikTok. TikTok is really vitriolic. They are really anti-AI. A lot of people also, I'm not trying to convince people that I'm AI, but a lot of people are like asking in the comments, like, I don't know if this is AI, like, because I sound human, like, because I am, like, my audio is completely human made, but my face is completely AI generated, and I'm using a pretty good AI generator for it. So it's like, it is pretty convincing. So it's like, I get it. Like, if you're not very AI versed, like, you could probably get fooled, but like, that's a lot of my engagement is people commenting on that. But anyway, last week, this is a section I'm going to be referencing as the comment corner. I love engagement, even if it's not necessarily positive. If it's a conversation, genuinely do not care. I love conversing about video games. I love talking about them. I think it's awesome. People think what I'm saying is cool. It sucks that people are only commenting on the shorts, because that's not really the conversation, right? It's a clip of the conversation without full context. It's impossible for me to put the entire, like, 10-minute conversation I have about a specific topic into like a 30 to 45 second short. So like, I can't do that. So like, I have to really minimize it and make it snappy and concise and get to the point and the meat of the matter, which often is the most vitriolic and, like, rage baity or whatever the case is. That just happens to be the case, unfortunately. But it does drive engagement. It does drive people to the conversation, even though it doesn't lead to always the best conversation, because they're only engaging with a small part of the conversation that I may have addressed their argument in another part of the podcast. So it's really unfortunate that that's the case. But anyway, this comment corner comes from the previous episode, which I didn't actually expect to do very well. So another minor tidbit about influencing statistics is I was assuming that anything talking about like an old game or anything like that wouldn't do well. Only stuff that's like current with the algorithm would do well, and nobody would give a frick about anything else. And that's, for the most part, kind of true. The things that get the most views are the things that are typically trending with what people are talking about, which I think is common knowledge. But I actually got a lot of engagement on clips that are talking about games that are older, or, like, I think that's where really most of the good conversations and good comments that were somewhat notable came from, were from people talking about older games that, like, weren't really a part of the conversation, because those people were looking at content for games that are older because they probably care about those games. So like, they're in that niche, this is definitely the case. So in my last episode, I talked about previous Game of the Year nominees and if they deserved it, like what the case was behind that, and so on and so forth, how it turned out, how history has reflected Game of the Year over time. And so I talked about Dragon Age Inquisition, and I said it hadn't aged gracefully. The single-player campaign's missions are not good, so on and so forth. And I had this comment come in from Hilarious Truths on YouTube. It's a bit of a wordy one, but I think it's interesting. It leads at least to something interesting, I think. Quote, I think you seriously need to spend more time trying to enjoy something that would otherwise be a miracle to every generation before it, and instead of spreading harmful, hateful rhetoric, hateful, vitriolic ideas, you should suggest helpful modifications or fixes that can serve others. So, new side quest. If you have nothing nice or constructive to say, don't say anything at all. I literally play this game with hundreds of friends still, and that is to this day, and it's that enjoyable. You're just a spiteful minority. Sorry about your reality. Hope this helps, Tro. I mean, bud. And then I had 2 comments replying to that comment, actually like backing him and being like, yeah, actually this game is still pretty cool and I really like it. And I was like, what the frick are these guys talking about? Like, I was genuinely kind of confused. I've never heard anybody really defend Dragon Age Inquisition. At least ever since it, like The Witcher 3 came out, it's been like, oh yeah, well that game clearly is kind of archaic in terms of its design. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, these guys are talking about the multiplayer for Dragon Age Inquisition. And I was like, Dragon Age Inquisition had a multiplayer mode. I didn't know anyone cared about multiplayer in these games. Mass Effect 3 also had a multiplayer mode, funny enough, and I actually played a decent bit of that multiplayer mode too, but like it wasn't fantastic or anything. It was just like a horde mode kind of deal, but like they have had multiplayer modes before. Inquisition apparently also had a multiplayer mode, and I looked it up, and it's like a dungeon crawling co-op experience where you basically just go through dungeons and like collect loot and stuff. It's kind of Diablo-esque. And I was like, oh, do people still play this? Looked on SteamDB. Hundreds of people are active in the game currently. When I'm looking at it, it's about 500 people are actively playing this game, like, which is odd hours, by the way. I'm recording at odd hours at the moment. And like the normal peak for the game is like 750 to 1,000 players a day, and like that's low. Recently, Veilguard it trailed off, but it used to be thousands of people were active in the game a day, and I was like, what the frick? Yeah, this game actually does have like a active, alive, like multiplayer community. What the frick? And so like I had no idea. Like that was so bonkers to me to learn that, one, people still play Dragon Age Inquisition, and two, people are like, it's a pretty vibrant, active community still. And I learned that from this comment, and like several people were like, nah, dude, like Dragon Age Inquisition's actually pretty freaking solid still. And I don't think that negates what I was saying about the game, because I'm specifically talking about the single player, which is what I would assume like 99% of anyone who plays a BioWare game cares about, is like the story, the characters, the world, the decisions you make within them, not the multiplayer mode. And like, that's cool that I learned that exists, that people care about it, but I think that's just insane. You know, like I think that's it's cool. Don't get me wrong, it is cool. But it's just crazy that kind of wormed its way into my comment section, and there were multiple people who were clearly finding the video because it was referencing Dragon Age Inquisition, and like there probably just isn't that much content about Dragon Age Inquisition still, and they're defending it based on the multiplayer. Like I mean, obviously this guy's comment is a little pointed and a little, mean, but like, I don't know. I expected that to be a little bit more hopeful to me, but I genuinely think he was missing the forest for the trees in this. I can see this is a man who loves a game and is trying to defend it, and he sees somebody talking bad about it, and he's just like, no, I love it. And it's like, well, I'm not even attacking the thing you're talking about. Like you're talking about two different games, in my opinion. Like the multiplayer aspect of this and the single player aspect of Dragon Age Inquisition are like totally separate in my mind. Literally didn't even know it existed until this comment. So, but I greatly appreciate the comment, even if it was, clearly mad at me. But like, it's better than 99% of my comments, which are just calling me AI slop and saying that I don't exist, which that can be hurtful, saying that a man doesn't exist. But anyway, got a lot more comments. A lot of my comments are focused on Ghost of Yotei. We'll get to that when we get to that. But I think we got a lot of news to get into. That's right, the news, my favorite segment of the show. Love going through these news topics, going through them in detail. So let's do that for you. So, starting off, we're going to start with the newest. The newest news just kind of happened a couple days ago, and I wanted to include it because I think it's a big deal. And that is, GTA 6 has been delayed to November 19th, 2026, amongst union-busting accusations at Rockstar. So this kind of came out of nowhere. GTA 6 had already been delayed. It was supposed to come out this year, and it got delayed into March, I believe. May. There's too many months with M, and I'm sorry. And by two, I mean two. But it got delayed into May. And to me, that was like, yeah, that was the date. Like, they wouldn't delay it so much if they didn't have a firm, concrete idea of when it was going to come out. Jason Schreier had reported people inside Rockstar were saying there was no way that date was going to stick. It was going to get pushed back because they're not trying to push crunch, and there was way too much that still needed to be done in order for the game to meet polish standards. And it happened. It got pushed back to late November. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this game gets pushed back again. It's entirely possible. When this was announced, Take-Two's stock dropped 8%, a massive drop. It's so clear that this game has to be a huge success for them, which it will be. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen, but a huge tank to their stock. Not only that, but this delay, just doing the math on how many developers they have, the costs just to run the studio and develop the game and polish it, this is going to cost them $60 million to delay it this far. Now, this game is going to make billions of dollars. I mean, the first game, or the fifth game, already has. So it's the second best-selling game of all time. So it's already made billions of dollars. It continues to make millions and millions of dollars, every month due to its microtransactions with its online component. So this is inevitable, going to be made back, and it's staggering the costs that go into this. It's just kind of crazy. Again, this game is going to be monumental. I think it's going to probably sell better because it has been delayed into holiday window purchasing. People are going to be buying this for their Christmas gifts and so on and so forth. So I think, honestly, a delayed game is eventually good. A release game is potentially bad without polish, and I forget the exact quote. It's a Miyamoto quote. But essentially delaying a game is good. You can't really fault somebody for delaying, at least from a gamer's perspective. So I'm happy about that. If it's better, it's better. That's great. But what I'm not so happy about is union busting, okay? So right before this announcement, 31 workers were fired from Rockstar UK specifically. And people think that it was because they were associated with the union. So they were talking behind closed doors about unionizing. Rockstar heard about this and they said, no thanks, bye-bye, and they laid them off, which is not cool, if so. Rockstar came out and they said, hey, we didn't fire these guys for union busting. They were breaking NDA. So they were sharing company secrets behind or outside of, the premises. They were leaking secrets about the game, whatever the case is. They broke NDA. They were, sharing classified information. Bad. And so we fired them. I think both of these stories are equally likely. I think when you're working on a game as high profile as GTA, you're probably going to be approached about it a lot. You're probably going to be talking about it a lot. Everybody's going to want to know about it. You're going to try to sound cool saying you're, talking about it or whatever. Who knows what the case is? I know people who are under NDA for freaking government contracts, and they talk about that bull crap. NDAs are a legal wall, but you're still going to probably tell your wife about, what you're working on, or your friends, or whatever the case is. And when it's not a government contract and it's not like you're leaking nuclear codes, you're just leaking, who the playable protagonist of GTA 6 is, or whatever the case is, whatever that potential information was. It's who really cares? Of course they're gonna blab. Is it also equally likely for something like Rockstar to be yeah, I don't really want you to have a union? Yeah, probably. I think Rockstar has been very vocal about trying to be a little bit less crunch, which is typically a little pro-union in its stance. I'm seeing this get a lot of traction because the video game industry, and specifically journalism, a lot of big voices are very pro-union. Whether I agree or disagree with that, it's very ham-fisted in how they're trying to push it. I saw Giant Bomb talking about this. I listened to Game Mess Mornings with Jeff Grubb all the time, and he was saying, he was kind of pushing the idea that like this delay was trying to downplay the union busting articles. Like essentially, like what happens if you Googled Rockstar a week ago? The first thing that would come up would be articles on, union busting, which is not a good look. And so they delayed the game to try and, what's now going to be the first thing that pops up? Oh, well, the delay, which is far more beneficial to them PR wise, which to me is just, that's so conspiratorial. I don't think they thought that the union busting accusations were worth $60 million in continued development costs, a 8% stock drop. Like, that's just insane that a company would be like, well, we need to tank the stock 1/10 of our value, cost ourselves $60 million. And, like no shot. Like, that just is insane to me to even promote that idea or consider it to be legitimate. And, like, I don't know. I don't know. Jeff Grubb he has a lot of political statements that he pushes. And, I don't always fully agree with them. But, like it is what it is. I think, I don't know what the truth is. I think is the fairest and most honest interpretation of this story is I don't know what the truth is. I think it looks really fishy. 31 people fired at the same time for sharing information about the game. I don't know. I think it kind of sounds a little bit more likely that 31 people were maybe working together to form a union or to unionize in some way, shape, or form, and they were let go because of it. Like, that just makes more sense, right? Like, I feel like you wouldn't just lay off everybody who was sharing information about the game behind closed doors at the same time. I feel like you would kind of, like, as soon as you find that out, you would get rid of them, I doubt that there was an email chain of 31 of them that were just like, let's all talk to Kotaku about how, like, the GTA 6 stuff, or, share code to another company about how we're developing this game. I don't know. It seems real frickin' fishy that they all got laid off at the exact same time, and it wasn't union busting. But, like, is it also possible that they were probably sharing secrets about the game? Yeah, it's totally possible. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. So, like, I don't know who to believe. If I had to believe somebody, I'd probably believe the union workers. Like, if I had to lean in one direction or another, I'd probably believe them. But, like, to say that they delayed the game to cover up the union busting efforts, that's insane to me. I think that's crazy. But overall, the story is still the same. GTA is being delayed is still a massive deal. And if you had summer plans to just play GTA, or if you got your wife pregnant so you could, have paternity leave during, GTA coming out, like, I'm sorry, man, but you done messed up. So, next up, and this one to me is really the big story of when I was gone, which is Halo Combat Evolved has been announced. It's a ground-up campaign remake, and it's coming to PlayStation day one. This is massive. It's massive because it really does signal Xbox saying, we are a publisher. We are no longer in the console war. The console war is over. The console war is officially over. We are raising the white flag. We are a publisher. We are bringing our tentpole major IP to our biggest competitor's platform. Day one. Used to be we waited a little bit. Now it's day one. Crazy. This is a monumental moment. This is Sonic coming to the freaking GameCube. This is another Dreamcast. The thing is the Dreamcast, Sega was around for a while, so I take that back. Sega made more than just the Dreamcast. They made several other consoles. But, this is a similar situation. The difference is I think Microsoft had just had every resource available to them. They had infinite amount of money They had infinite amount of support. They could do whatever the heck they wanted. They changed the literal landscape of the gaming ecosystem by buying Activision, Bethesda, several other companies, and turning them into publishing houses, essentially. This is insane that they've essentially just ceded all ground. And, I guess to go into the game a little bit more, Combat Evolved is going to be just a single-player remake. There's no multiplayer. So, I would assume you're going to get a Halo 2 remake. You're going to get a Halo 3 remake. Those are going to come to PlayStation. They're going to kind of be entry-level points for this game or for the series to PlayStation gamers to kind of come on in and say, hey, maybe a Game Pass subscription is worth the money. It's probably Master Chief Collection a possibility. I don't know why you'd do that. Maybe a revamped one at this point. Halo Infinite, whatever the next Halo is going to be. I think they've kind of wound down Halo Infinite after 4 years. They've kind of given up on it, even though they committed to it for 10. So, it is what it is. I don't know. It's interesting. They're adding some prequel missions. So how did Master Chief meet this guy? You're going to be able to find out in this game. Halo 1, I have never been a big Halo guy, okay? I'm going to be real with you. I've played every Halo game, too, because it's like Zelda. It's I've always looked at it and been I know a lot of people like this, but I got to get in on it and see what's up, play every game to make sure it's for me or I'm missing something or whatever, and then I play them all and I'm yeah, I don't know, it didn't click. It didn't click the same way it does clearly click with so many people. Halo is that for me, for sure. Halo 1 is easily the worst of the entries. It obviously is known for having what is the library or whatever it is. It's a very long mission that isn't very fun, where you're fighting the Flood for a very long period of time. I definitely agree with that. And then what I would honestly say is the whole back half of the game is redone content, where you're retreading maps you've already been on, exact same maps. You're literally going right back through them. And I thought that part of the game clearly needs to be touched up, clearly needs to just be reworked, to be frank. You can maybe say that the combat, the shooting in Halo is great, and I can certainly understand that argument, but the campaign in at least Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 1, definitely has the most rough edges out of all the campaigns. Halo 2 and 3 are fine, in my opinion, but Halo 1 has some clear rough edges that needed to be ironed out, and in my opinion, completely scrapped or reworked. So it makes sense they're going back and doing that, and I think all the better for it. This one blemish in the series kind of will get, I guess, lanced in a way, in a gross metaphor. But anyway, so overall, the announcement of the game itself is fine. It doesn't come with multiplayer or anything, which is really the long tail of what Halo is. But everybody likes the campaigns too normally, so it's good. Even though this game has been remade before for the Master Chief Collection, it just hasn't been ground up. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm assuming it will be just fine. It will be Halo again, hopefully better, fantastic. I would be mildly excited about this game. Really not. I would even say mildly would probably be an exaggeration, because I've played Halo before. I played Halo Combat Evolved before, so I didn't love it. So it was okay, well, I don't really need to play it again. It is what it is. But the fact it's coming to PlayStation Day 1 is crazy. The fact that we're going to have a PlayStation logo on a Halo game is a groundbreaking moment. It is worth picking up the game just to say that. I mean, just literally, it's monumental. It's historic. This is a console war that I have been a part of since I was a child. My first real generational like commitment was to the PlayStation 2, which was obviously the first console that the console generation that Xbox was a part of, you know? And that's insane to see that I committed to the Sony brand, and now it's the only real one other than Nintendo and PC, obviously. But like I think both of those are in just completely different spaces. Microsoft and Sony have been competing for kind of the same space for a very long time now, and I would say the response to this has been very overwhelmingly, I mean, like, I'm not going to say negative isn't the right word, but it has been. And I understand, frustrated. Frustrated is a great word. It's been very frustrated from the Xbox community, and I totally get it. I can only imagine if all of a sudden Xbox or PlayStation, not all of a sudden, but over years, PlayStation slowly but surely was like, every game that you've bought with us, it really doesn't matter anymore. All your achievements, they really don't matter anymore. You know, all of your purchases tied to your Xbox account, you really probably should have just bought those on Steam. Like, that is, that would have been thousands of dollars for me. Thousands and thousands of dollars, thousands and thousands of hours of my life dedicated to this platform, dedicated to the meta behind the Xbox achievements or the PlayStation trophies, whatever the case is. And it's really just kind of evaporating. And it's kind of, there's an admittance that it's like, well, you really made a bad choice, and you really shouldn't have committed to us, even though we told you should have. We gave you incentives to do that, and now we're kind of just like, I don't know. We're going to just kind of be a multi-plat guy. And you really should have committed to PlayStation the whole time, because we really were just going to put everything on there anyway. And like, if you had just held out long enough, it really wouldn't have mattered. That sucks. That sucks balls. Okay. That sucks balls. And I have to feel for the Xbox community. I have to feel for them. And in response to this, during the announcement for this game, the Xbox community manager comes out in a PlayStation t-shirt and says, this is, Halo is coming to PlayStation moving forward. So every Halo coming forward in the future will be on PlayStation. I understand why Microsoft thought this was a good idea. It's trying to embrace the Sony ecosystem. It's trying to embrace Sony fans. It's trying to say, hey, Sony fans, we kind of need you guys because without you, we lose a lot of money. You're a large chunk of the change that we have to rely on now as a publisher. We really need you guys to buy games, and so let's hype that up. Cool. Understandable. Is it maybe a little soon to rip that Band-Aid off and then like smack it with some salt? I don't know. Like, that seems a little too soon, right? It seems a little too forward. It seems like we already don't care about our Xbox fans. We are committed to PlayStation as a brand. And I don't know. I again feel like this is a small but significant messaging that probably wasn't thought out by Microsoft. And it again, it just makes you feel bad for Xbox fans. It makes you feel bad. Like, I'm committed to PlayStation because that's where all my money's gone. That's where all my time is. I get it. Like, I have always supported Sony because of that. And I've always wanted Sony to do well because I didn't want this exact thing to happen. I didn't want my investment of time and money and energy to have gone to the wrong thing, right? I was playing a long-term investment into Sony, hoping that I wouldn't have to then all of a sudden shift my investment to something completely different. Like, I want my platform to succeed, right? Because I don't want to have to spend $1 million on another platform trying to catch up, from all the time that I spent on that one. That's what Xbox gamers are going to have to do, unless Microsoft finds a very convenient and easy and cost-effective way to try and mitigate that, like giving you Steam copies or, God forbid, PlayStation copies of every single game that you've ever bought on Xbox, which I don't see happening. Maybe, but like, or giving an Xbox version of a game, like something like that. I don't know how they do it, but it's possible. But like, I used to be like, hey, Xbox, like the console war is great and all because I understand why you're doing it because I feel it. I understand this. I'd fight for the same reasons, right? But now it's over. It's done. The console war has been decided because somebody gave up. They turned over and died. They rolled over and died. And now you're kind of left with these, I'm not going to say deserters, but these people that were abandoned by their king, right? And you have to feel bad. You have to feel bad because they didn't want that to happen and they can't control that. So it's like, well, frick, dude, like, just pat him on the head, like, and, like, just do whatever you can to make him feel good right now because I can only imagine that would really be devastating. It would really be devastating. So, on top of that, a couple of other things came out that people in the recent weeks related to Xbox that also just do not make Xbox look great. So, Xbox exec claims that exclusives are a way of the past. This was a quote that clearly is being used to justify their move to be a publisher. Because obviously exclusives are not a way of the past. Nintendo, I think, is the obvious counterexample to this. Nintendo is only really relying on exclusives to make money at all. Like, that is like 80% of the entire sales of Switch are just Nintendo exclusive titles. If everything else is minor. So, like, saying that exclusives are a thing of the past is clearly just like a cope. It's clearly them just saying, well, this is our business model now. So, like, we can't say that exclusives are, like, you have to have exclusives because we aren't that anymore. Like, we are a publisher, and we're publishing on everything. So, like, exclusives, if we say exclusives are good, we're stupid, So, like, we have to back that. We have to back our decision. And I understand it, like, there would be more profit if everybody just became a third-party publisher, right? And put everything on everything, and we're seeing that happen. Sony is starting to put games on PC because it's just extra revenue that you'd be getting anyway, like, that you're missing out on. So why not, right? Why not? You're not convincing PC players to go to PlayStation if you haven't over the past 20 years. Like, they're just going to stay there. So you might as well just put it on there, make them wait a couple of years. If they don't get FOMO, they don't get FOMO, and they can buy it then. And, like, you win twice. So, or maybe not twice, but you win more than you're losing, for sure. So, again, this is just another statement that, I mean, like, this is, if I was an executive at Microsoft, I'd be saying the exact same thing, right? But, like, it just doesn't look good. It's another thing that's just rubbing salt in the wound. Like, oh yeah, like, if you think exclusives are cool, like, you're dumb. And it's like, well, that's kind of how you sold me on buying an Xbox a long time ago, was you had an exclusive that I really wanted to play. So not cool, right? And then followed up by Matt Booty and Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, claiming that TikTok is now Xbox's biggest competition. I saw a lot of pushback on this statement. I think it's obvious, though. I think TikTok is now everybody's biggest competition, right? You're fighting for people's time now. Like, I actually agree with this. I think this is a statement that literally everybody should be agreeing with. If you don't agree with this statement, I think you just don't fully understand how everything works now, because there's so much content out there for people to consume. It is impossible for everybody to consume everything, right? There are millions of hours of content uploaded to YouTube every day. Even if you minimize that to, like just the content that's worth watching, is that not probably like 24 hours of content? Probably, it probably is. So like, you should never have content. You should never be without content. You should never be without stuff that is going to take your attention away from other things. And if that's the case, when are you going to have time to play video games? When are you going to want to play video games? If you are constantly looking at TikTok, if you're spending 8 hours a day on TikTok, you no longer have time to play video games. If you no longer have time to play video games, you're not going to buy them. Like, that's just the obvious conclusion to that statement, right? So, duh. I think anybody who's pushing back on this is obviously like not thinking that through, I think. And, like Netflix's CEO has come out and said, yeah, the biggest competition we have is TikTok and sleep. Because like when people are sleeping, they can't consume our content. They can't have a reason to justify a subscription to Netflix. So obviously, everybody's kind of moving in this direction. And now that Xbox has become basically a Game Pass, a justification for Game Pass, it's a Netflix. So if Netflix's CEO is saying that, I think Xbox should also be working within the same, idea, right? So it just makes the most sense. I saw people pushing back against that, like, video games aren't the same thing as TikTok, and it's like, well, they're not talking about in terms of like, like a video game is comparable to TikTok, like or a TikTok short. Obviously, that's not true, but like in terms of an economy of time, like every entertainment is just what you fill your time with. So like you don't need entertainment necessarily, but you do fill your time with it. And if you don't have the time to fill, yeah, you're not gonna engage with it at all. So like it makes sense to me. But like at the end of the day, Xbox. I mean, final thoughts, right? Is Xbox is now a publisher. It's a confirmed thing. Like it's no longer a console manufacturer. It's a publisher. It will be, like the next console that comes out will be a justification. It will be an excuse, maybe is a better word. And we're not going to see anything else from them after that other than just here is maybe an app on your TV or your PC or PlayStation, I think is what we're going to see, where you can play Game Pass. You're going to stream your Game Pass games. You're going to download games to your TV or to your PlayStation or whatever, your PC. You can already do that and play them there. And that's what we're going to be. So, it sucks. It sucks. It sucks for people who have been incorporated into this ecosystem for so long. They are losing out on all of their not all their purchases. They still have them, but like there's just no reason to stick around anymore. There's no reason to stick around anymore, and you should have probably been on PlayStation side the whole time, if you were like deciding between the two. So it just sucks. It just sucks. And if you're frustrated, I totally understand it. And I'm here for you. I'm here for you, bro. I am here for you. Genuinely. 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 Next. This one is a lot smaller of a story, but I think still notable. Remedy's CEO steps down after Firebreak's poor sales. Operating losses are then confirmed, and the new interim CEO vows to make hits moving forward. So the facts behind this, or the numbers behind this, is they had a 16.4 million euro loss between July and September of 2025. If we look back a year for the same period, they gained a 2.4 million euros in operating costs. So, or not in operating costs, but in revenue. So, a big change. This is, of course, blamed on Firebreak. I don't think a lot of their games... I think their games are cheap to make. If you've played like Control or Alan Wake, you'll probably notice... I'm not going to say there's cut corners, but they do use... And I think they're the best they're the best at this. kind of reusing assets, creatively utilizing the things that they have to make a game efficient and still entertaining. So, like their games are probably cheaper to make, and they don't make a lot of money, but they still sell well. I think it took Alan Wake 2 a while, but eventually it made money. Not like a lot, probably. It's still tailing, I would assume, but it's like, it's a great game. It's top 3 games of that year for me, and that was a very competitive year. But fact of the matter is I don't think this studio is like making buku bucks. This is not a massive selling studio in the first place. It's kind of niche games, artisan games, some could say. But Firebreak was a big risk, as a lot of studios seem to be making. Firebreak was their like PvE online service game. It was a free game on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, and I gave it a shot. And I played it for maybe an hour, tried to farm some trophies for it, did not enjoy it, and I was like, okay, I'm out. Reviews for the game were not great, very mediocre, if not subpar reviews. And of course, like they were talking about, oh, we had a lot of players engaged with the game. Well, it was free, so I hope so. And then the player count immediately dropped off. It was nobody was touching the game anymore because it wasn't very fun. It wasn't very fun, and there wasn't a very good loop to encourage that, right? So this is another casualty, I'd say, of the live service game allure, right? This is a lot of studios are looking at this and they're like, we can make the next Fortnite. Like the potential upside for this is so great if we have one of these out of the park home runs. And a lot of these games, let's be real, they get lucky. Like you look at something like a Peak or like a Repo or something, and those games got freaking lucky. Like they 100% normally would not do that well. They got really freaking lucky, which is what it is. That's fine. Happy for them. But like to say that you can recreate that, and neither one of those games are live service games, to be frank. But like there are examples of other live service games that have just kind of popped off and nobody really expected that. I mean, PUBG was one of them, the first one of them, right? And Fortnite, literally Fortnite, was like nobody expected that Battle Royale mode to pop off like it did, and it became the biggest game in the world. Like that's insane, right? It's insane. But like then you have Concords, right? You have Concords that pop up, and you have every other live service game that is put out, and you cannot bet on these games, like pretty much anything Sony's really done for the live service elements that they've tried. I understand from an executive perspective when you're looking at these things and you're like, look, Fortnite is making billions of dollars consistently, and they are doing so little work. They're not producing a new game every day or every year. The upside to this is so massive. Like if we could get a piece of that pie, we would have recurring revenue for years. Millions and millions of easy money if we can just get in on that. And I think a lot of people are looking at this as, well, we can do it. Like if we just can, we're taking a big bet, but if we do it, we can really come out on this. And this is what can happen, is you lose your job as a CEO. Like you have to step down immediately. That's the reality of it. And it sucks. But like it's a very competitive space. It's very hard to convince millions of people to drop Fortnite or Apex Legends or one of the many others of online competitive games or cooperative games to come and do your game. Like, these are games that people are essentially making lifestyles out of. And to tell them to leave and maybe commit to a second job or whatever the case is hard. It's really, really, really hard. And you really have to have something really, really, really special. And if you think you don't have that, if you think there's even a possibility you don't have that, if you're staking your job, if you're staking your company on that, I think you need to rethink some things. And that's what I think had to happen here. So I think it's very clear Remedy's probably going to just focus on not doing that anymore and just focusing on specifically making single-player narrative games like they have been and making them good and hoping that that consistently turns out for them. And it's going to probably take a while for them to get out of this hole that they dug. But, like, it is what it is. I think Remedy is not looking too hot right now with that much loss on them. But, I hope for the best because, like I said, I do enjoy Remedy's games. I do think they're good. I think Alan Wake 2 is one of the best games I've played in the last several years. So I'm hoping the best for them. But it's sad that so many people continue to fall into this honey trap of online service games. So can't wait to see who does it next because it's just inevitable. Speaking of, next big story. Amazon makes major cuts to its gaming division, specifically estimated at 14,000 jobs. Heart goes out to every single one of them by Bloomberg. And they plan to move away from MMOs. So, Amazon, if you didn't know, makes video games. Who knew? I hardly remember that. Like, you really kind of have to remind me that Amazon continues to make video games. They have multiple studios. They have Luna, which people have to continue to remind me of. Honestly, people don't even remind me of. Like, I have to figure it out myself that thing is still around. But Luna is like their gaming console / platform. Like, they do a lot. Specifically, their biggest hit, and really the only thing that they've had be a hit, was New World, which was an MMO. You may have seen people play New World for maybe 2 weeks, and then nobody played it ever again. I actually had a couple of friends who played New World for, like I said, like 2 weeks, and then gave up on it. And that's unfortunate for New World because it seemed like Amazon thought that was a really good way forward for them. I think MMOs are clearly, I'm not going to say a dead genre, but I think its time has come and gone, right? You now have so many other options. Why would you go with an MMO when you can play a Fortnite, when you can play an Apex, when you can play an Arc Raiders? Like, those seem to be the games that people are gravitating towards more as a general audience. Obviously, World of Warcraft still exists. They somehow are still charging a subscription fee. I have no idea how they get away with that, but they somehow do. Good for them, making money over money over money with that. New World did not require an online subscription. They made an expansion for it, and at the time of this announcement, they completely ended support and development. They will be abandoning New World, and I think similar to everybody else. From what I understand, the player count for this game dropped dramatically after its, release. And that happens with, let's be real, that happens with every single game. Every single game has a huge peak release numbers, and then they all taper off to like 1/10 of what they were or something like that. But even then, like, that's really all you need is still just like that 1/10 to survive for your game to have an online healthy community, right? Like, that's fine. But like in this case, from what I understand, the numbers really dipped. Like, for an MMO, it was unsustainable numbers. They tried to make the expansion that they made. I don't know much about it, and I don't think it did well. It didn't really bring anybody back, and I think, might as well bail on it. In conjunction with that, they also canceled their Lord of the Rings MMO. If you didn't know, you probably do because of, Rings of Power or something like that, their Amazon show. Amazon owns Lord of the Rings. So that in conjunction with that, they obviously own the gaming rights to it. So they have the Lord of the Rings MMO that they were making. They bailed on that. So they said, no, I think this whole MMO thing is just a bad idea. And I think it's very accurate. MMOs typically require a lot of ongoing upkeep. And, that's why there is a subscription fee to WoW, is because it takes a lot of money to continuously update the game and to have servers running. And if nobody's playing your game, then you are going to lose money on an MMO. It's not that you lost money on the development costs. You're going to lose money continuously. So yikes. Yeah, so them bailing on that is pretty understandable. I think, like I said, MMOs are just likely a bygone genre at this point. If you haven't gotten in on the MMO train, you're probably just not. I think the only things I ever hear about MMOs now are just the legacy MMOs that still have maybe I was talking to a friend the other day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, dude, you were playing. I was playing Wizards 101 the other day." I was like, Wizards 101, which if you don't remember, that was if you were watching Nickelodeon or Disney Channel or something, there would be Wizard 101 MMO ads, advertising children to ask their parents' permission to, play Wizard 101. I was like, that thing still is alive. I remember Toontown. That was an MMO back in the day, and they shut it down, and then people brought it back. Toontown Reanimated. Check it out if you're still in the mood for some nostalgia bait. Toontown Reanimated is still alive. You can still play Toontown to this day, fan run, but Wizard 101 is apparently still owned by the original people. It's still going. There's still an active community. I'm like, how the heck is that game still alive? That's crazy. But I hear these niche MMOs that survived, and the big MMOs WoW that survived. But I just never hear about any of these new MMOs that really grab. Well, I guess Black Desert. I'd call Black Desert an MMO. Yeah, Black Desert grabbed a hold to some people. So I think it's just a really hard genre to break into, is probably the best way of saying that. But I would not advise people to go into MMOs. Just I probably wouldn't advise people to go into live service. But would I probably advise somebody to invest in video games in general, who's a new startup? Absolutely not. It's just, it is a very competitive space. It is a very costly space that I would not advise any company, even somebody like Amazon, is having trouble breaking into the gaming industry. They can't do it. And a lot of that is skill. A lot of that is, developing the right games, right? But it's just really hard to do. So what is Amazon doing in response to this? So they've recently rebooted Luna with their new flagship title, Courtroom Chaos, starring Snoop Dogg. Go Google that. It's interesting for sure. It's a party game. They're saying they're going to pivot to a lot of AI development. It is what it is. I have to see what the output for that is necessarily to whether condemn or support it. I'm obviously using AI right now to make shorts. So there is compelling uses for AI for sure. It just depends on how it's used. And how many people lose their jobs over it. And more specifically, they still own several other studios, specifically Crystal Dynamics. And they said, we're going to continue working with Crystal Dynamics and Maverick Games. Crystal Dynamics is currently working on a Tomb Raider game, and Maverick is still working on an open-world driving game. And we're going to put those out, and we're going to continue working on those. I have no idea what Amazon's long-term plan is for Luna. I have no idea what their long-term plan is for video game development. That I kind of say the same thing about Netflix. Even though I think I can see a path for Netflix to make it viable, just essentially making Netflix an even more broader, appealing subscription. I understand that. I don't understand necessarily what the strategy is for Amazon. I don't see the strategy. What is the strategy for Courtroom Chaos starring Snoop Dogg, the game? Like, I don't understand. You know, like, what are you really going to do with a new Tomb Raider game? Are you going to exclusively put it on Luna? I hope to God not. I am not doing anything with Luna so I can play another Tomb Raider game. Like, that's not happening. So, like, what is the long-term plan for Amazon's gaming division? I don't know. But they're pouring millions and millions, probably billions of dollars into it, and they seem to have no idea. They seem to be fumbling, and I really would love to see a long-term vision for this because, hey, more competitors in the space is great. I don't think we're ever going to see Amazon be a competitor that we want them to be, because now we've essentially lost Microsoft as a competitor within the console space. They've ceded it to Sony. So it's like we really need more competitors to try and keep people on their toes and not let people just do whatever the frick they want, because Sony's now kind of has the ability to do that. And I'd love to see Amazon kind of pull it together. I don't see it happening, though. Like, I just don't see any kind of strategy here or through line or anything, really. So we'll see. They haven't given up on it. If it wasn't for the fact that they had not just rebooted the Luna service, I would be like, I think they've just given up on it. Like, this is them just kind of trying to sunset their gaming division, but obviously they still have some idea. So we'll see. Got no clue. Next, and I had a story about Quantic Dream announcing a 3v3 multiplayer game, but it's basically just the whole story is, what the frick is Quantic Dream doing? They don't make these games, which is, that is a thing I can say, but that's pretty much it. But anyway, a more interesting story. We're already over an hour in, so I think we're good. Next, Ubisoft. Ubisoft back in the news, as always. But Ubisoft claims a former Assassin's Creed boss quits. So Mark Alexis Cote, they say, hey, he vominosed. And he says, no, I didn't. I did not do that. Thank you very much. So breaking this down. So this is Ubisoft, obviously, recently was broken up into two different companies. One company specifically that we're referring to now was in charge of all the big IP. So Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Tom Clancy, so on and so forth. Those big brands, those are the ones that company specifically is a part of. And they are run still by a lot of family members of the Gilmont family and Tencent, who has a very big stake in that specific part of the company. So Cote has been one of the leads on Assassin's Creed for the past 2 decades or so. He's been a director, producer, a lot of different things that were very big roles across various games in the franchise. So essentially, Ubisoft comes out a few weeks ago and they say, hey, we love Mark. He's a great guy, but he left. He's no longer in charge of Assassin's Creed. Sucks. We love the guy. We wish him the best, but we've made this guy the new head of Assassin's Creed. So see you later, Mark. Have a good day. Love you, buddy. Bye. And Mark said, yeah, I didn't quit, actually. So, well, he didn't say he didn't quit, but he said he was pushed out, which is just kind of weird for Ubisoft to have said that. And, like, he still has the ability to refute it. Like, he's not, like, dead or anything. So, like, he can say, yeah, I don't think that's right. And that's what he did. So he says, look, they replaced me. Like, they came to me and they said, hey, you're no longer going to be in your position, okay? Like, we're taking you out of your position and we're going to put this guy in your job. But here's this new job and you can have it. And apparently, according to him, it was like a demotion. It was not as like significant of a position as he currently had. So he was like, well, then no, like I'm not going to accept a demotion. Like, I'm just going to leave. So he quit. And so, like, yeah, he quit, but like after he was ousted from his position and offered a demotion. So, like, yeah, I get it. Like, you know, like, that makes total sense. So, like, Ubisoft coming out and being like, I just can't believe that he would leave like that. That was just so weird, just out of nowhere. We really would have liked him to have stayed, but he was really just kind of out of nowhere, just left. It's like, no, like, that's wholly untrue. And I wholly believe this guy because, you know, like, Ubisoft is known for basically putting the yes men in positions of power. Family members, you know, people who will do what they say, covering up for the people that they care about. You know, like, this is stuff that Ubisoft is known for. They've had a track record of. It sucks, right? It sucks major balls, but, like, it is what it is. So this guy being ousted because essentially there was just a person who was a bigger yes man, who was more, according to him, quote-unquote, aligned with the company's vision, which, like, to me just says this is a guy that would do exactly what they want. And I get it. You know, like, they put the CEO's son in charge of this subsidiary company, and they were like, oh, yeah, dude, like, he's a really good hire. And it's like, well, he really isn't. We've broken that down on a previous episode, but, like, his son really doesn't have a lot of great qualifications. In terms, I mean, like, he has some, but, like, nothing great. So, like, it's kind of crazy to put him in charge, and it's a clear nepotism hire. It's an obvious nepotism hire to give him so much power over such large gaming franchises. But it's like, well, obviously he's just going to do what his daddy tells him, and he's being groomed to take on larger leadership roles within the company and probably be CEO of Ubisoft one day. And because it's a family-run company, like, the Guillemots still own a large portion of stock within the company to continue making decisions. And a lot of the board is made up of people that typically support the Guillemots. So it's a family company. So, like, it's just weird. It's just another one of Ubisoft's weird things that makes Ubisoft just seem like a bunch of weirdos. You know, it's just like, why would you phrase this like this when there is still a source, like the direct source, that could just tell you, everybody, that you're lying? And it's, like, obvious that you're lying. Like, it just is weird. It's weird. It continues to make Ubisoft look weird and scummy, and I don't know. I still look at Ubisoft and I look at them as like a innocent little puppy, or like a maybe like a little clown or something like that. I don't know. Something like a cross between an innocent puppy and a clown. Like, I just think of Guillemot, the CEO, and I'm like, Yves Guillemot, and he's like, I am just French, and I don't know any better. I'm just a little innocent Frenchman. I would do nothing to nobody. You know, I that's what I think when I think of him. And obviously, he's, like, the sexual harassment allegations, not against him specifically, but against so many people within the company, and them covering it up, actively covering it up, having no idea how to run the freaking company, basically running it into the freaking ground. At the beginning of the year, I predicted Ubisoft was going to be no more. I thought it was going to be sold off to, like, a Microsoft or somebody else. But, like, their operating costs are so high, and they're, like, it would have been impossible to sell them. So, like, I was like, I just think it's very possible they're just going to sell off their IP, and there just won't be a brand that anybody cares about anymore. And then they did this, which was not what I expected at all. But, like, they clearly are just struggling. They're struggling in so many different ways. So to see them continue to make these weird decisions that, like, anybody would be like, what the frick are you doing, my guy? Like, you know better than that. It's like, it's just weird. It's just weird. It's just so French. Apologies to any French listeners. But, like, you know, come on. It's just weird. All right. So, now on to the impressions, which this week is a little shallow, mainly because there's only one game. It's Ghost of Yotei. Ghost of Yotei, I obviously talked about in my last main episode of the podcast. I think I was about 10, 15 hours, somewhere in that mark, maybe close to 20 hours in. And for those that remember, I said I was disappointed with the game. I was expecting a huge leap in quality. I was not really enjoying my time. It was just kind of another open world checklisty game. And I was disappointed. I was feeling some kind of way about it. Back to the comments on my shorts, a lot of people saw this as rage baiting. I mean, it was my honest opinion at the time, for sure. My honest opinion at the time. They called me out on it. They said most of the people defending Yotei were basically saying, well, the first game was perfect. And I have several comments that say that. The first game was perfect, so what the frick do you want? You know, it was essentially their rebuttal. And it kind of made me think a little bit. And I think that games, when you're looking obviously at a franchise, you're not looking at the game to be completely different, right? But you are looking for improvements. No game's perfect. I mean, there's a lot of games that you can look at and be like, okay, well, yeah, that's a great foundation. I can't wait to see what they do with the sequel. I think Ubisoft is a great kind of proponent of this. You look at Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed 1 was a foundation, and they really built on it with Assassin's Creed 2 and made it something really actually pretty good. Something kind of like Watch Dogs is maybe a little bit of a more comparable example to Tsushima and how I was feeling about that, in which Watch Dogs was, everybody was like, yeah, this is a great foundation. I can't wait to see what they do with it. And then Watch Dogs 2 really didn't do anything with that foundation. It was just kind of more Watch Dogs. And it wasn't really improved on in a lot of ways. And that's kind of disappointing. And, you know, so there are ways of improving upon a sequel. I look at Sucker Punch in saying Sly 1 to Sly 2. Well, Sly 1 and Sly 2, I'd say, are almost completely separate games. They're not completely separate, right? But, like, there's a significant jump because it goes from being kind of a typical level-based platformer, mascot platformer of the time, to being an open-area, mission-based heist game, which I think is an obvious evolution for what the game is conceptually. It continues to use those platforming elements, the elements of combat, and really evolves that game into something great. You know, Sly Cooper 1 is a good game for sure. Some would say it's great, depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a mascot platformer, I'd say it's certainly a great game. Sly 2 is great. It's just great in general. Now, there's still problems with Sly 2. I think that's still repetitious. You know, like that's really its main flaw, is you're really kind of doing the same few mission types over and over and over again. I think Sly 3 fixes that. So you have a really, really great game with Sly 3. But like, what does Ghost of Yotei do to improve upon Tsushima, right? That was kind of the question mark here. I have now played 20 plus more hours, 20 to 30 more hours of the game. I still haven't finished it, but I have started 100%ing areas. I've done all the bandit camps. I've, found all the wolf dens, all of the armor upgrades, weapons, blah, 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 blah. Starting to get basically 100% completion trophies for various side objectives. All the bounties, I've done all the bounties. It's just, I'm kind of taking my time with the story and focusing a lot on all the side content. It's kind of how I play these open world games. I try to 100% it because once I 100% the game, or once I beat the game's story, I typically have very little incentive to want to go back and do all the miscellaneous side stuff, and I really want to platinum this game. So I'm trying to platinum it. But I have come around on this game a lot, I'd say. I have come to appreciate the combat a lot more. I was really kind of saying the combat is very samey in the first few hours of the game. There's issues that I didn't appreciate. I stand by. Let me just be frank, okay? I stand by everything I said about my initial impressions. It's just that the way I was playing the game and the way the game is designed, I think that the game's opening can be a lot rougher than, like, say, the rest of it, right? So let me break it down for you. And I don't have notes. I apologize. Normally I have notes. It's been a heck of a week, heck of a month, really. So I haven't had time to do notes, but I'm just kind of freshly coming off of this, so I thought maybe I could kind of convey it naturally. But the opening of the game, let's kind of walk through it, okay? The opening of the game just kind of drops you in, right? It really doesn't even tell you very much so about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, it obviously gives you an idea. It's like, okay, well, these guys killed your family. Cool. You need to kill them. You get it. You don't get much more in terms of reasoning behind that until you progress further in the game. And that's kind of drip fed to you over the first 20 or so hours of the game. And it really makes it feel like you have a large gap of time where you don't fully know or fully, as a player, feel committed and relate to why Atsu is doing what she's doing. I also felt that Atsu as a protagonist was not very good. Atsu comes way more into her own the more you have time with her. Like, again, early on in the game, she's not very talkative. She doesn't interact with very many characters in the world in very interesting or in-depth ways. I've definitely come around to Atsu as a character. I think she's very well written, very well acted. We'll get into that later. I got a few comments regarding that specifically in a very controversial way, which I do want to touch on with this game. The open world and combat were also things that I had issues with early in the game. So the way combat is structured in Ghost of Tsushima, it's a rock, paper, scissors kind of deal. So you have, and this was similar to the way it was in Tsushima. So you have a specific weapon type, and that weapon type is powerful or, like most effective against another weapon type. So, for instance, katana is weirdly only effective primarily against katana. And pole arms, or your spear, is only effective against like a ball and chain type of weapon, and so on and so forth. And so like basically every weapon has like kind of a counter that you have to use against it when using combat. Here's the problem, is you don't get half of those weapons until you're like halfway through the game. Like you are building your arsenal as you go, and in a game that's 50, 60 hours long, depending on how long you're taking with it, you're not going to have those weapons for a long period of time. And the way that I was approaching the game was I did not really go into the main story areas initially. I ran around there's a big open hub area that really doesn't have any story content in it, or at least a lot of story content in it. And I ran around that area and I just did a bunch of side missions and collected all the side stuff and did all that. I did not think the side missions were very good. I stand by that. Most of the side missions in that big hub area are not very good. And because I did not have all of these weapons, I was going up against these weapon types that I did not have a counter for. So the way that these counters work is one, if you're using a weapon that that is not effective against that weapon type, then the enemy will basically block way more. So you're not going to do any damage and you're not going to do any stagger. So the way the combat works is you have to stagger an enemy, and then that opens them up to attacks. So as the game progresses, you get, obviously weapons that counter them, so it adds more stagger, and then you can also upgrade your weapons to do more stagger damage to them. And so a lot of the early game's combat is not only whittling away at people's stagger meter over long periods of time, overly long periods of time, because you don't have the weapons that are like effective against them, and you don't have these upgrades that will increase the stagger. So like you're basically just kind of, the combat kind of sucks. Like combat is really frustrating because you're just going up against all these enemies and you're just like, well, frick, I just have to wail on this guy with my katana for like 30 seconds to get a couple of hits in and eventually break his stagger, and then I can kill him. And like that's one enemy out of like the 10 enemies you're fighting or whatever the case is. So that was a large part of my time with the game, the opening hours. As I progressed, I went into the main story elements. The main story, I actually really enjoy what you're doing for a large part of it. I think that, you know, fighting the Oni is really interesting. I think fighting the Kitsune, like the stories that you have to interact with behind both of those are very interesting. Fighting the dragon and the spider, you know, you're kind of moving into this overall grand battle. You know, like a big group against a big group, and you're kind of the lone warrior that's helping turn the tide. Like, I really enjoyed the story and conceptually what you're doing. And I think Sucker Punch has always been really good at that, of like thinking of like really cool, fun, like fantasy fulfillment ideas, whether it be like I'm a thief, you know, stealing, you know, like kind of Robin Hood-esque. I'm a superhero or a supervillain. I'm a samurai in Japan. Like these are all, in my opinion, really cool ideas that I don't think get too much service in the video game industry, considering how obvious of an idea they are to make a game of, and I don't think often get done super well, right? So not saying that they don't ever, but they often don't, right? So here I am, now thinking that all these problems I had with the game are non-existent, right? But the problem is, here is my problem, and I've said this on the podcast many times, and here I'm a Sucker Punch stan, and I hate it because it's conflicting me so much. But I think that, and you know, I could have mainlined the story elements that would have given me these weapons. Not to say that I knew how to do that, having not looked it up or whatever, and the game doesn't necessarily directly tell you. They kind of give you ideas, but they don't directly tell you. But the opening hours of this game are really a struggle. And they even, a lot of skills that are bare bones skills that you should have from the jump are, you have to unlock them. You have to go into the world and find upgrade skills to then unlock them, like dodging or dodge rolling. Like these are such bare bones skills that it almost felt like I should not be even attempting to progress the story in this game unless I have these skills. You know, like it felt like this is a necessary part of my combat kit. So like I really should drop the main story and just focus on upgrading my character, because I do not feel like I am efficiently capable of fighting enemies with my current kit. So like I did not think it was necessary to do that, and I think that it really front loads the game with the player doing a bunch of bull crap that I wish I didn't have to do. And you know, like I personally am not like a kind of gamer that really was looking for like a checklisty open world game. I'm kind of OD'd on those games. So like when the game basically sat me down and was like, look, do you want a legitimate kit? Well, then you need to freaking go out and do stuff immediately in the open world and just do like a bunch of checklisty things. I'm like, okay, I don't love that. And it means that the game feels really good in the last bit of the game. And I'll say that the combat is improved. I could not feel that at the beginning of the game because I was having so many issues with it. But like towards the end of the game, I have enough skills. I have enough guns, or well, I have guns, but like I have enough, like other items in my toolkit that I'm like, and I've upgraded all those things, and I'm like, oh no, this actually feels good now. And I actually don't remember Tsushima feeling that way. Like I even remember towards the end of Tsushima being like, I still feel like I suck at this game. And like at the end of this game, I feel like I'm a total bad anus. Like I feel like I'm really cool. I feel like I can take on the world. The combat is smooth. It feels great. It's small tweaks. It's not like they completely overhauled it, but it is small tweaks that do go a long way in making the combat feel a lot better. Not going to say the combat is perfect. Still have some small tweaks and opinions that I'd say need to be changed, but overall, I think the combat is improved. So that's where my issues were coming from, and it's hard for me to ever say, oh yeah, like you should power through the first 10 hours of the game, and then when you do that, you'll be good. Like, the rest of the game is going to be good. Because when I say that, it makes me... I think of my argument always, it's like Final Fantasy 13. It's like, oh yeah, dude, you just got to play like 20 hours of the game, and then it gets good. It's like, nobody should commit 20 hours to a game. The thing is like, Ghost of Tsushima is not bad the first 10 hours. It's just fine. It's just fine. And being fine is not a problem, but I want the game to be good the whole time, right? I don't want to struggle with it the first 10, 15 hours of the game and like do a bunch of stuff that I really wasn't fully enjoying and having combat that wasn't fully fleshed out, and I had to unlock a bunch of stuff in order to get to that kit that was made me like viable in terms of combat. Like that just seems... That seems a little silly to me. And it makes me feel like a replete playthrough of this game is just not going to happen. Like, I wouldn't replay this game for that reason alone. Maybe New Game Plus, when that eventually gets announced, because it will. But, like, currently, no, I wouldn't really want to do that. So, yeah, I think side content can be good. It really is a minority of the side content, though. A lot of the content in the main open world, like the hub area that you're kind of dropped into at the very beginning of the game, is not good. It's not good. I didn't enjoy it. I found most of the missions to be boring. They seemed like filler. And I thought this game was going to be an easy 60 hours to 100%. It looks like I'm probably going to hit like 50. And that's doing a lot of side content, like literally 100%ing it. And I'm looking at this game right now, and I'm like, I feel like a lot of this content, like if you mainline the story for this game, you can probably beat it in like maybe 25 hours. I would say, I wouldn't be surprised, pretty easily. And to me, that's really... I feel like a lot of this content was put in because they were like, it's an open world game. We need this game to have like 60 hours of content. And I feel that. I feel that a lot of this content was kind of shoehorned in. It was not their greatest content. Some of the side missions, I'm like, yo, this side mission's awesome. Like the Spider Lily General armor mission, that mission is legitimately pretty freaking rad. And it's just an optional side mission you don't have to do, I would definitely highly recommend. It's my armor that I've been using the entire game because it reduces stagger times, which is the worst part of the combat. But anyway, there are still problems, right? It is still an open world game. I think, however, the main content, when you focus on the main story, this game is pretty rad. You're consistently doing really cool things, and I'm not going to say all of it's really cool, but I am going to say, like, conceptually, I can see somebody sitting down, and if somebody told me, here's a high-level idea of what you're doing in this game, I'd be like, that sounds freaking cool. I love that. And I'm going to say the story itself is probably the most disappointing element of that, but, like, what you're doing moment to moment in that story is still pretty cool. So, like, if you didn't know, Ghost of Yotei is a revenge story. And it doesn't do anything crazy. Did you know revenge is bad? Yeah, did I spoil anything for you? Yeah, Atsu has to go on a journey, killing people who killed her family, and then at the end of it, she's like, I don't know if I should have done that. That seems like I'm a bad person for doing that. And it's like, yeah, every revenge story ever? Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. It's obvious. Okay. But she interacts with some cool characters. Some cool things happen in the context of those characters. Really enjoy Jubei. It's not a spoiler to say his name, but Jubei is a cool character. Like there's a lot of cool moments that you interact with, like storming castles, subverting ninja ninja hideouts and so on and so forth. Like there's some really cool moments. There's a mission completely dedicated to Jin from Tsushima. Really cool mission. Really enjoyed that. Really cool homages to Jin, and even some cool references to like Sucker Punch's other games. Few references to like Infamous. I found a few references to Sly Cooper. Great to see. Some of my favorite gaming franchises, and obviously their lineage as well. But anyway, the revenge story in and of itself is not anywhere near as cool as what I considered the original Tsushima to have a story of, which is like you fighting back a Mongol invasion. Obviously, that conceptually from a high level sounds way cooler than like a revenge story, but overall, it's well done. I still think it's well done. Atsu. And this is where we get into some more comments, which, funny enough, okay, so I want to preface this. These comments were deleted. So I would be reading them, but by the time I started recording the podcast, the users had been banned and the comments had been removed. So, just throwing it out there. This is the kind of rhetoric we're dealing with on the internet. And by the way, I didn't even know that this was like a major conversation that was like people were going after. Like, I had no idea. That kind of blew my mind. But like, so people essentially were commenting that Atsu sucked and like the game was liberal propaganda and it was woke. And that essentially the comments were saying Ghost of Yotei sucks, because let's be real, all my clips were basically saying I was disappointed in Ghost of Yotei because that was my general perception at the time. And why I don't like doing freaking halfway impressions. But anyway, but they were essentially saying Yotei went broke, or Yotei went woke, and so it went broke. It's the game sucks because it went woke, and I don't see that. Okay, I'll go ahead and say that up front. I genuinely don't agree with that. I have no idea how this conversation happened or why. All I can see is she's a female protagonist. Now, that being said, the actor, and by the way, love the actor's presentation of or representation of Atsu. I think she does a great job. Really think she's a talented actress. Atsu is a character that is clearly pained by her past, clearly a loner, kind of gruff, and been on her own for a really long time, and it has trouble having genuine relationships with people, but also has kind of a playful side in it as well, in herself as well. Very compelling character at the end of the day. I think it takes time to realize that, but I think it is certainly the case. I really enjoyed Atsu by the end of it. Still like Jin a little bit better, but really enjoyed Atsu. Really enjoyed the actress behind her. I think she does a great job. Is she very vocally left-wing? Yes. So she made a tweet that said that she was proud Antifa and so was her wife. This, of course, ruffled the feathers of many right-wing gamers. They didn't like that. Sucker Punch themselves also had some workers come out and say some very left-wing, left-leaning things, and were let go by the way, specifically around the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They supported the action of the killer, and they were promptly fired for those public comments that they made. So, this is a studio that has done things, and people associated specifically with the studio have done things that have angered right-wing people. And in a way, understandably so, right? In a way. So, do I think that this game is woke? I think that is really what that comes down to. Do I think this game is woke? No, absolutely not. I don't get that impression at all. I don't think that it is woke at all. I think that there are some references to the fact that Atsu is a woman throughout the game. Many men poke fun at her, discount her, but I don't think it's done in a, women suck, go girl power, kind of deal. I never got that impression. And I genuinely think I can call that out when I see it. I called that out with Dragon Age the Veilguard. I said that it definitely had moments where it was way too ham-fisted with its left-wing rhetoric, specifically the coming out dinner that you have for a girl that is non-binary. Don't know how they thought that was a good idea and fit within the context of the Dragon Age medieval universe, but yeah, it was very awkward and very unnecessary for sure. In this case, it makes sense within the context of this time period. Japan in general is a very conservative, at least in terms of, females, society, and certainly was years and years and hundreds of years ago. It makes sense that people would see a female Ronin and think that she was not capable as a man, as capable as a man would be. That just simply makes sense. So, and it is not like every character thinks that. It is not like every character is like, oh man, you're so cool because you're a girl. In fact, I don't think anyone says that. I think I only see people be like, you suck because you're a woman, and then you obviously prove them wrong because you kill them or something like that. That's kind of what I see with this game. So I genuinely think that this game has become a target of the rhetoric, and I didn't even notice that. I didn't know it was a very big conversation until that conversation literally came to me, and I was like, oh, I wasn't even talking about the game in a political sense. I was just saying I was disappointed with it in terms of gameplay, and people were already bringing that up and being like, oh, well, it's woke, and that's why it sucks. And I'm like, I didn't get that impression at all. I didn't even know that was a thing people thought. So I had to do research on it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess people are pissed at this game for some things that definitely got them riled up. And it's okay, I don't agree with those statements, but I also don't agree with this game is woke. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Gaming is, the internet is weird. My comments are weird. There's somebody in the comments right now calling me AI. So, which I kind of am. It just depends on how you look at it. But anyway, Atsu is cool. I think Atsu's cool. I think most of the main cast in this game are cool. I saw Skill Up's review when this game initially came out. He basically says, he complains about a good bit of things. A lot of his complaints are, I feel very much focusing on one chapter of the game, and they don't really bleed into any other chapter. So it almost felt like he played up to a certain part of the game and was like, I get what this game is, and put it down. I would say after that part of the game gets really, really good. But again, it continuously goes back to how many hours do you want to put into this game before it gets good? How much of the bull crap do you want to wade through before you finally get to the juicy bits of this game? And I don't think that there's anything bad in this game to wade through. I have to continue to emphasize that. But I also think that you don't get to the best parts of this game. The game really doesn't show its full colors and show how fun it is until you get several hours into it. And I don't love that. I think that the game is not paced well in trying to give the player a sense of progression that, like, oh, look where I was at the beginning of the game. I really sucked. And it's like, well, that's because you really took away a lot of tools that I should have had from the very beginning, or that made the game a lot more frustrating than it should have been without them. Like, that's like giving the player sprint like 10 hours into the game. It's like, why did you ever take that away from me? Like, that just frustrates me. I never had it in the first place. You know, like, I should have had sprint from the very beginning. But I still ended up really, really enjoying this game. I'd say I loved it at times. Again, like, I have conflicting thoughts about this game overall, but I think this game is, I think what the big question is this game an improvement over Tsushima? And I think it is. I genuinely think it is. I think combat is better. I think characters overall are better. I think story and concepts are probably better, right? I think overall, right? I think there's some really cool stuff you do in this game, and mission structures within the main mission specifically are way more interesting than what I recall them being in Tsushima. Is this game different enough? Is this game improved enough? Does this game remove enough of the flaws from the formula that was already existent in Tsushima? No. No, I don't think so. I think it's an 8.5. I think if I had to give this game a rating, it's an 8.5. It is a good game. It is a good game, a great game even. It is fun. There is nothing I would really say is bad about it, but there are obvious things that could be improved. It is not a big enough deterrent for me to say don't play it. It's a good game. I would say any game that's like good is an 8. And I think it's above that. I think it's above good. I think it can be great. I think like a 9 is a great game. So I think it's in between that. And your mileage will vary on it. I do think that my commenters that were saying, how can you improve on perfection from Tsushima? You certainly can. I think Tsushima wasn't perfect. Absolutely. And you certainly can improve on it. But at the end of the day, I think Yotei is a great game. I've really enjoyed my time with it. Sucker Punch continues to do great. I will say my expectations for Sucker Punch have lowered. So I used to think that Sucker Punch would always build upon their foundation and make something that was good, great. I will say that this is only a half step up. This is only a half step. Did they improve some elements of this game from Tsushima? Absolutely. Did they improve all of it? No. Did they keep some of the things that were clearly flawed? Yes. So that's my kind of general take. My general takeaway for Tsushima here is great game for me, could be a good game to others, and I really, really I really look forward to see what Sucker Punch is doing next, because I know it'll be fun. I know it will be fun, because they still remain my favorite studio ever. This is not a stumble. This is just continuing down the same path that they were already on, which is fine. It's fine. It's just, I was expecting a jump up. It's not a jump up. It's a step up, which is fine. It's fine. But anyway, that's my impressions on Ghost of Yotei. I can't wait to finish it. I am only a couple missions away from beating it, I'd say. But like I said, a lot going on recently. But it's good to be back. It's good to be back. I am not looking forward to dicing up this episode and then turning it into shorts and then scheduling those. It's a lot of work, dude. Being an influencer is a lot of work. And I'm not even like a full-time influencer. I'm just doing it like once every 2 weeks. It's a lot, dude. No wonder people freaking want to kill themselves and their influencers, dude. It sucks. But anyway, I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to talk to people. And, it really does invigorate me a lot more knowing that there are some people out there who will engage with my comments, with the content, on the shorts, and we'll try to have conversations. Hopefully they start listening to the podcast. Hopefully maybe you're a new listener to the podcast who found me through shorts or some short form content or something like that. That would be cool. And, we can have a conversation together. Why not? Send me a comment, send me an email, and we'll get it rolling, brother. I'll bring you up on the podcast. I brought up like freaking 3 people on the podcast, 2 of which were like banned for like saying right-wing hateful comments. But, it is what it is. It's the internet. That's just part of it. But anyway, it's good to be back. It's good to have you listening, friend. I hope you're playing some good games. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope everything is good in your life. And I really do appreciate it. As always, I really do appreciate it. So, thank you. I'm going to stop wasting your time, and I'm going to let you get back to your games, brother. And sayonara, and good night. Or morning, or I don't know. I'm just going to end it. Bye.